went on a date and all we talked about was wooden leg extensions. The conversation was stilted. I'm looking for a house at the moment. It's my house. I've forgotten where I live. Sorry, I took a bit too long to think about that one. Okay, finally. I spent the whole of today pruning. I was just chucking prunes at people. Don't do that. Unless you can run faster than them. Alright, more jokes from Tim Vine's biggest ever joke book. So, let's begin. Okay. I was driving here and a policeman stopped me because one of my tyres was a bit flat. Luckily, I had a foot pump in the boot. So I knocked him out with that and drove off. Okay. I was working in a garage and little Bo Peep walked in. She said, "There's smoke coming out of my bonnet." I said, "Your hair's on fire." When I drive my car, eggs shoot out the boot. It's a hatchback. Okay. I'm colourblind, but it doesn't stop me enjoying life. The other night I saw Joseph and his amazing brown coat. It was great. So I got a job at Burger King and Andrew Lloyd Webber walked in. He said, "Give me 2 Whoppers." I said, "You're good looking and your musicals are great." Batman walked up to me, smashed a vase over my head and said, "Kapow." I said, "Don't you mean kapow?" He said, "No, I've got China in my hand." Oh dear. You invented Tipp-Ex. Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, this is a long one. So I was in this restaurant and during the starter the waiter came over, tapped me on the head with his little finger and then walked off. Then during the main course he got his index finger and applied gentle pressure to my shoulder. And then while I was having dessert he brushed my ear lightly with his thumb. That's the difference between a good restaurant and a great restaurant. It's the little touches. Okay, another round of jokes from the biggest ever Tim Vine joke book. Which makes me wonder how many other joke books are there by Tim Vine. If this is the biggest one, this implies there must be other joke books out there by Tim Vine or containing Tim Vine's jokes. Anyway, let's get started. So I went to the optician's. He said, "How many fingers am I holding up?" I said, 17,251. He said, "Wrong, 3. But I tell you what, you can't half count quick." Okay. I did some cross-dressing this morning. I said, "Where are my flipping socks?" I saw these 2 citrus fruits having a fight. It was Satsuma wrestling. This woman said to me, she said, "I've got designs on you." Then she showed me a diagram of my spleen. I used to be a teddy boy. I had 2 furry ears either side of my head. The other day someone burnt the bottom of my shoes. It was soul destroying. My Christmas decorations are inflatable. I'm forever blowing baubles. I refuse to work in a coal mine. It's beneath me. I met a fox who was brilliant at football. It was Brazil Brush. For those of you not from the UK, there used to be a puppet called Basil Brush. I've just been on a crash diet. I drove my car into a tree and spent a month on a drip. Why don't eggs tell jokes? They'd crack each other up. I don't trust stairs. They're always up to something. What do you call someone with no body and no nose? Nobody knows. Did you hear the rumour about butter? Well, I'm not going to spread it. I need a drum kit. Why couldn't the bicycle stand up by itself? It was too tired. What did one hat say to the other? Stay here, I'm going on ahead. Oh God. Why did Billy get fired from the banana factory? He kept throwing away the bent ones. Dad, can you put my shoes on? No, I don't think they'll fit me. That's not so much a dad joke as a reply to someone, isn't it? Why can't a nose be 12 inches long? Because then it would be a foot. What does a lemon say when it answers the phone? Yellow. Here we go. This graveyard looks overcrowded. People must be dying to get in. Continuing with my exploration of Tim Vine's joke book. So here we go. And bear in mind I haven't read any of these beforehand, so I'm just going through them. I saw this extinct bird with a hunchback. It was Quasimodo. I've started displaying some of my clothes and possessions and photographs of me. I've made an exhibition of myself. I didn't have a happy upbringing. I remember my 3rd birthday party. I was 15. The Second World War was no picnic because they couldn't find a big enough blanket. Okay, so I went to the petrol station. I said, fill her up. When I came back, he was stuffing my wife's face with cream cakes. Oh dear. This turkey challenged me to a fight. He threw down the giblet. I saw this angry Veruca. He was on the walked path. Oh dear. So I went on a date and all we talked about was wooden leg extensions. The conversation was stilted. I'm looking for a house at the moment. It's my house. I've forgotten where I live. Sorry, I took a bit too long to think about that one. I spent the whole of today pruning. I was just chucking prunes at people. Don't do that. Unless you can run faster than them. Alright, it's that time of the week where we have another hit of Tim Vine's greatest jokes. So, let's begin. So I was on this train. I said, I don't think much of this bunk bed. He said, that's the luggage rack. This bloke said to me, he said, do you ever talk off the top of your head? I said, no, halfway down at the front. I went on holiday with my horse. It was self-cantering. Oh dear. So I said to this bloke, I said, when I was on holiday, I stayed in a bed and breakfast. He said, half bored. I said, no, I was totally bored. I was a rubbish church window cleaner. I got rid of all the stains. This bloke said to me, he said, shall we talk about diaries? I said, let's. That's spelled Letts. The fact that you have to explain the joke makes it worse. So I said to this bloke, I said, "Can you take my pulse?" And he ran off with my lentils. So I went to the Natural History Museum. I said, "Have you got the bones of Diplodocus?" He said, "No, I'm just wearing new shoes." So I said to this bloke, I said, "I'm going to North Africa." He said, "Tanzania?" I said, "If I don't wear a hat, I'll tan both of them." Oh dear. Okay, so this bloke said to me, he said, "You look like a medieval string instrument." I said, "Are you calling me a liar?" Okay, another round of Tim Vine jokes from the biggest ever Tim Vine joke book. No, yes it is. I'm going to have to learn the name of the book. So, let's begin. In 2002, the Queen had been on the throne for 50 years. Would you believe it? This bloke said to me, he said, "Are you a high flyer?" I said, "No, I tend to hand out flyers at waist level." I went to the haberdashery. I was looking for a cheap frill. I went down the local opticians. I said, "Have you got a contact lens solution?" He said, "What about laser surgery?" This bloke said to me, he said, "I'm the brother of River Phoenix." I said, "You must be joking." Well, that doesn't, I mean, it's pronounced Joaquin, isn't it? So, it doesn't really work. Okay. I fell in love with a clumsy cleaner. She swept me off my feet. The biggest ever Tim Vine joke book. I'm still not certain whether I'm getting the name right or not. Anyway, did you know 30% of car accidents in Sweden involve a moose? I say, don't let them drive. Wyoming sounds like Flash Gordon begging for mercy. Oh dear. Apparently, 1 in 13 Americans have worked for McDonald's. The other 12 got rejected. The other day, I couldn't decide whether to buy a packet of guitar strings or a box of eggs. It was 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. Oh dear. Okay, I can see through your smile because you've got glass teeth. I just got a text from heaven. That was a godsend. I came here on a sheet of sandpaper. It was a bit of a rough ride. This bloke said to me, he said, "Do you think there's life on Mars?" I said, "Well, there's a couple of wasps around the wrapper." In case you don't know, Mars is a chocolate or brand of chocolate in the UK. Church singers. They're an acquired taste. Okay. I might need... So let me read that again. Church singers. They're an No. Church singers. They're an acquired taste. Last night, I had a dream someone was saying, "On your marks, get set, go." I woke up with a start. Oh yes, I'm back with another round of the biggest ever Tim Vine joke book. No comment. Okay, let's go. I met a grumpy American. He was a Missouri Guts. So I saw this sad man in a refuse tip. He was down in the dumps. I met a leech. He was buying a Valentine's card. He was a sucker for romance. This bloke said to me, he said, "I'm going to be a chimney sweep." I said, "Suit yourself." Spelled S-O-O-T. I saw a bull rush in a library. I thought, that looks like a good read. God. My favourite band is called the Cockles and Mussels. I saw them alive, oh, in concert. That's a reference to a song, isn't it? I can't think what it is. Someone can, if you know, let me know. So I rang up the fire brigade. I said, "My pet sparrow is stuck up a tree." He said, "Sparrows are supposed to live in trees." I said, "Not Ian." Yeah. Sorry, it took me a moment. So I took up arable farming, but I came at a cropper. This bloke kept hitting me with poultry. I got goosebumps. This bloke said to me, he said, "Do you want to scrape both your knees?" He was a double grazing salesman. Now, no comments about the fact I'm Chinese and I pronounced it grazing, not glazing. This bloke said to me, he said, "Shall we talk about diaries?" I said, "Let's." That's spelled L-E-T-T-S. The fact that you have to explain the joke makes it worse. So I said to this bloke, I said, "Can you take my pulse?" And he ran off with my lentils. So I went to the Natural History Museum. I said, "Have you got the bones of Diplodocus?" He said, "No, I'm just wearing new shoes." So I said to this bloke, I said, "I'm going to North Africa." He said, "Tanzania?" I said, "If I don't wear a hat, I'll tan both of them." Oh dear. Okay, so this bloke said to me, he said, "You look like a medieval string instrument." I said, "Are you calling me a liar?" I said, "Do you like my shirt? It's covered in pictures of cactuses." He said, "Cacti?" I said, "Never mind the tie. What do you think of the shirt?" So I was playing the piano in a bar and an elephant walked in. As I was playing, he started crying his eyes out. I said, "Do you recognise the tune?" He said, "No, I recognise the ivory." I went to the head office of the RSPCA today. It's absolutely tiny. You couldn't swing a cat in there. Today I had dinner with my boss and his wife and it was a complete disaster. My boss's wife said to me, "How many potatoes would you like?" I said, "I'll just have one." She said, "It's alright, you don't have to be polite." I said, "Alright then, I'll just have one, you stupid cow." I entered a competition putting sails on boats. It was rigged. So I went down the local hotel and I said, "Can you put me up?" And he nailed me to the ceiling. I've got a friend who puts plaster of Paris on my face, waits for it to dry and then hits it with a chisel. He cracks me up. Ground sheets. They don't get much coverage. I've got a gun made out of a dozen pigs. It's a 12 bore. This bloke said to me, he said, "Why have you got manure on your head?" I said, "I've just had my hair done." What has lots of legs and a machine gun? A caterpillar. Whenever I'm in Italy, I become a rickety old table. I guess I'm just a hopeless Rome antique. My granddad was a film actor a very long time ago. He was a star of the bronze screen. Dot 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 dash dash dash. I really regret that. Remorse code.